Would you recognize a picture of Doc or BI if you saw it? Yes. Did you see Doc or BI on any other occasion than the one time that someone told you to give him 10 keys or however much it was? Yes. Tell the jurors in what context you would see Doc. Doc used to come around quite often. A lot of times it was just money, to get money to pay for the bills that was owed, like maybe on the cars or the houses, so to speak. So he did stuff on the money side for Meech's people. Yes. Is that Doc on the screen there? Government's Exhibit 20A? Yes. Did you end up getting a Tennessee driver's license? Yes. This is already in evidence, Government's Exhibit 17A. Who's that? It's myself. Leslie James Parker. How did you pick that name? It was picked for me. I didn't pick it. You didn't pick it. Did you have anything to do with picking 40th Avenue North in Nashville? No. Tell the jurors real briefly how it was you ended up with a Tennessee driver's license. I was on the run for a probation violation and I needed an ID, and Doc somehow hooked it up where I met the guy in Tennessee and was able to receive it. The guy you met in Tennessee, did you see him any other time other than the time you got your driver's license? No. Now, you just said something I want to explore a little bit. On the run for a parole violation. Tell the jurors what you're talking about. Once I was released from prison in 2003, and then once I went to Atlanta, that automatically gave me a parole violation. So being in Atlanta in and of itself was a violation of your parole? Uh-huh. Did you let Meech and J-Bo and the crew know that basically you were a fugitive from, yes, St. Louis and Missouri? Yes, they knew. What did they say to that? Just like basically I'd been in jail long enough, so I didn't need to go back to jail. So that's when I was told to get the ID and I would stay in Atlanta. So it wasn't anything you hid from them? No. We've talked a little bit about Ill. We'll talk a little bit more about him. This is Government's 13A. Do you recognize the person in that Tennessee driver's license? Yes. Who is that? Ill. You said Ill was at the gate sometimes. Did you ever see Ill over at Space Mountain? Yes. Did you see him at the elevator? Yes. You talked a little bit about the horse ranch. We haven't heard a lot about that. What's the horse ranch? It was just a house where some of the guys stayed, and they used to call themselves the Four Horsemen, so they wound up nicknaming the house the Horse Ranch. Okay, would you recognize a picture of the horse ranch if you saw it? Yes. Government's Exhibit 8A. We only have aerial shots of a lot of these places, but do you recognize that? It looks like it. Looks like what? The house called the Horse Ranch. You're not sure? No. Did you ever stay at the Horse Ranch? Maybe once or twice, yes. Did you ever see drugs at the Horse Ranch? Yes. Did you see Defendant Daniels Ill at the Horse Ranch? No. Did you see fancy cars, Ferraris, besides limos, but other types of fancy cars at any of the places where you stayed or where you were doing this work? The gate, but I never did any work at no gate. I said either where you stayed or where you did work. Yes. What kind of cars did you see at the gate? Phantoms, Ferraris. A Phantom, you said? Yes. What's that? A Rolls-Royce Phantom. Okay, while you were staying at the gate, this is early on, let me ask you this. You had mentioned that you went shopping. You went somewhere with J-Bo once, and he said it's about time you start doing what everyone else does. Do you remember that? Yes. Where were you living at the time he had that conversation with you? You mentioned gate, elevator, and briefly Space Mountain. I think it was at the gate. it was at the gate or the elevator. So either at the tail end of your time at the gate or the beginning of the elevator? Uh-huh. Before Jabo told you you're going to start doing what everyone else does, had you been exposed at all inadvertently, or someone said, yeah, this is what we do, to any of the drug-related activities of BMF? No. Did you ever see people like Jabo or Meech or Ill touching the product in the way you touched it? It sounds like you're moving bricks around, stacking, counting, and this and that. Did those guys ever get involved at that level? No, I've never seen either one of them touch drugs. When you say, I mentioned 3 people, but all 3 of those guys? Uh-huh. Order givers as opposed to doers? Yeah, I can't say that about Ill, but like as far as Meech and Jabo, yeah, but I never saw Ill around any drugs or anything. Okay, were you around? You mentioned there were 2 instances where you were directed to hand someone some bricks, Doc and Jeezy. Were you typically around when customers were coming in to get their drugs? No, there was only maybe a few occasions I saw that done. No. So whatever is going on with those bricks, let me ask it in a different way. You'd unload a limo, and then how much time would pass before the next limo would show up? A week, maybe 2 at the most. So we're talking 70 to 100 kilos every week or 2? Uh-huh. You'd unload 70 or 100 kilos one week. 10 days later, you're unloading another 70 to 100. Are you just stacking them up next to the previous pile that you made, or was that pile gone? That pile would more than likely be gone. Do you have any idea who got any bricks from that pile? Other than people telling you what happened, were you there? No. All right, let's get to this date when Space Mountain was. You put raided. You had been there earlier that day? Yes. Were you sent on some errand from Space Mountain that day? That day we was all getting ready to go to Miami for Thanksgiving, I believe. When you say all, just a bunch of BMF folks? Yes. Were you dispatched on an errand that day as part of the preparations to go to Miami? Yes, I was going to the store to get some cigars. Were you stopped on your way from Space Mountain to the store? Yes. Were you interviewed by law enforcement? Yes. Did they ask you for identification? Uh-huh. What identification did you provide? The Tennessee driver's license. The Leslie James Parker one? Uh-huh. Had you memorized everything that was on it? Yes. Tell the jurors why and how you came to do that. I was told by Jabo and Meech to remember everything on it because of my situation. I was on the run, and if I was pulled over, I would need to know everything on there. When you left Space Mountain that day, were you aware of whether there was kilograms of cocaine in that house? Yes. Were there? Yes. About how many? I think about 100 or more. Now, law enforcement raided it later in the day and found no kilos of cocaine. What happened? I think they were... Meech had went to check on one of his cars at 404 Motorsports, and he saw the law enforcement agents following him, and he called and said, clean up the house. Were you there during the cleanup? No, I think I had just arrived or so, or just left or something. You didn't help empty the house of the bricks? No. But you'd seen the bricks earlier? Yes. After all this goes down and Space Mountain is raided, did you end up at Ill's house? After all that happened, I stayed at the hotel a couple of days, and then I think I spent maybe a night at Ill's house before I left, coming to California. Okay, did you ever meet a handyman, a contractor who did work at the gate and Space Mountain? I can't say I actually met him, but I saw him. Did that person end up being at Ill's house at the same time you were at Ill's house? Yes. Tell the jurors what you remember happening. I just know he came. He knocked on the door and he was just telling us everything that happened at Space Mountain, how they had tore it up and was looking for drugs and who they was looking for. After everything had settled down from Space Mountain, did you stay in Atlanta? No, I moved to California. That was your choice, or did someone tell you that's where you're going? That's where Meech and Jabo told me I was going. What did you end up doing in California? At first, nothing. And then afterwards, maybe I was there a couple of months, I guess. Then I started basically doing the same thing I was doing in Atlanta, which when the limos would come to California, I would unload the money and then load it up with the drugs. So sort of the reverse. In Atlanta, unload cocaine and load money. But in California, you're saying it was the reverse? Uh-huh. At some point, lots of folks get indicted and arrested. Meech is off the streets, etc., etc. You weren't arrested at that time? No. All right, 1 second. I want to clear up one thing about Space Mountain. You said you moved in as in to live there. You had only been there a few days before it got hit, and then that place wasn't used anymore. You've also described work that you did at Space Mountain. Had you and these other BMF folks been doing the work of loading and unloading at Space Mountain before everyone moved in? Yes. For how long? And by that, I mean weeks versus months or years. A few weeks or so. Okay, so it was used, so we're clear, as an offload and onload location before you moved in? Yes. Thank you.